We're live. Hello. Welcome back to the DCU Experience. My name is Garrick. Today with me is Crisis. We've got a little bit of another crisis on our hands as True and Nick are nowhere to be seen, but I told you last week your boy would be here. Now, you may see something at the bottom of your screens. Do not be alarmed. We do have a donation goal, okay? The plan of the DCU Experience here, at least for Superman, is for all of us to meet up and see the film together. Now, Crisis lives in the United States in some undisclosed location. He will be driving up. Me and Nick live in the same city. True, you may have noticed, got a little bit of a funny accent. Not from these parts, doesn't live here. Lives across a pond in good old United Kingdom, England, Britain. I don't know what they call it these days. One of those three. I think all three of those are correct. But he lives over there. So we want to get him here. Plane ticket to get here and back. About 500 bones. So if you have it within the means, within your means to donate to the fund, please leave a super chat. Those funds will go directly to True's pockets, which will go directly to a plane ticket, which will go directly from there to here. So if that makes sense, love ya. Would love for True to come over here. But if you can't make it happen, you can't make it happen. What we do kindly request that you leave a super chat or a dono so we can get True over here and meet him in person for the first time, even though I've known him for like 7 years at this point, 7, 8 years. I've never met him in person because he lives in another country across the Atlantic Ocean. But with all that being said, it's just me and Crisis today. Crisis, how you been? You missed last week.
I did. I heard the old podcast, the last podcast, so I am up to date as far as topics are concerned. But I'm absolutely ready to dig into the latest news regarding the DCU.
Have you done anything else recently? What's going on with the channel? How's the channel been going?
I have been chilling. I've been formulating, some ideas, some concepts. Once you go hard for a little bit, you kind of drain the creative tank. So I've been
Right.
spending some time recharging, refueling. But soon I'm gonna pick it back up, start streaming on my channel again, start uploading, start scripting, and yeah, get the ball moving. But otherwise, I've just been chilling. Spent some time with the family. Had a nice dinner the other day, so that was nice. It was really more of
Nice.
a lunch. Yeah, but that was fun. But I have been scratching at the wall, scratching in my neck, having missed the opportunity to talk about the DCU. So what are our topics today?
Well, there's not a lot to talk about other than the fact that we are constantly being lied to by everyone involved with the DC universe, it seems, because Clayface is being rewritten. The script is being rewritten, ladies and gentlemen, which, maybe that's a pretty normal thing to happen in Hollywood. Maybe you get some script rewrites, some changes need to be made. Now, I would accept that under one circumstance, but we'll get to that later, I think. I think that's a good idea to talk about that in a little bit. But as it stands in the DCU, we were told, hey, we're greenlighting stuff when we get a good script. So if the script is good, then why is it being rewritten? Question number one. And then also, we had the Peacemaker teaser come out. Looked pretty cool. Peacemaker's got a new suit. The team's getting back together. Hell yeah. Could not be more excited for that. But that's generally what we're going to talk about today. It could devolve into some sort of other conversation, as these things tend to do, especially when there's only two of us. We've got to fill a lot more time, and with only two topics, it might not be super easy. Maybe we'll do a fun ranking. Maybe we'll answer some questions for those people that leave super chats for True's plane tickets. So if you'd like your question answered by Garrick or Crisis, two of the best members of the DCU podcast, I mean, What more can you say? Nick and True are also two of the best, but we're two of the best as well. So we're here, and if you'd like to ask a question, we'd be more than happy to answer that to get True over here in the United States. And maybe we'll all be together in one room to review Superman. And when that happens, let's put a donation goal up. Production, if you could get on that. Donation goal, reveal Crisis's true name, reveal True's true name, as well as their addresses.
And address, yeah. And families and their addresses. And
the list of their fears, their wants, their hopes, and their desires.
their
So
greatest weaknesses.
exactly, those are the goals for today. So if you would like to be a part of that, then please donate. But yeah, so let's get into this. Let's talk about Clayface. I said at the top, if you were going to rewrite the film, there would be only one reason to do so in my mind that would be worth a damn. And that is because there's a little bit of a Batman problem. And you may have heard us talk about it last week, but maybe if we were doing a little change of the guard, changing up what is going to happen in the DCU as Batman is concerned, i.e. Robert Pattinson coming into the DCU, then I could understand, okay, we have to rewrite it. We have to. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Now, you could just say, maybe that's a small rewrite. Why wouldn't you get the original guy that wrote the damn script to do it? That I couldn't answer. But that seems to me to be the only thing in my head that would make any sense as to why you would rewrite the script that you love so much. Thoughts?
Yeah, that was one of the key premises of this whole DCU experiment is, unlike the MCU where it seems like every entry has certain obligations, it has certain check marks that it has to meet, that these movies aren't an organic, oh, here's a director who really wants to tell a unique special Thor story. The MCU, it's for better or worse, has more of a conveyor belt, construction crew type approach to filmmaking. And that was one of the contrasts that a lot of people were excited for going into the DCUs, the notion that these will be passion projects, that if someone wants to tell a Firefly movie, if the script's good enough, then it'll get greenlit. And this seems to kind of fly in the face of that because
seems to Firefly in the face of that. Oh,
exactly. What it seems to go against the notion that the script was good enough to be made in the first place, right? It stands to logic that if a movie, if the promise is this movie will only get made if this or greenlit, really, those are the terms that James Gunn himself was using, is greenlit. He would only greenlight a movie if the script was good enough, and that's not the case. If you know off the top of your head who wrote the original script, it was this Hossein Amini, or was that the new writer? Was Mike Flanagan?
Yep. You got it right the second time.
Okay, Mike Flanagan was the original writer.
I believe so. You can double check me on that, but I'm like 99% sure.
Yeah, it's hard to say with a lot of these guys' filmography. The new writer seems to have written movies like he has a screenplay credit for Drive, which is a very beloved movie. And then he has teleplay credit for the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, which was more or less a miss.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple of movies that I haven't seen. So it's like, what is it supposed to be a big upgrade? I mean, it doesn't seem like these guys have collaborated with each other. It sort of just seems like a complete shakeup. So you really have to wonder. And that's something that I was anticipating is with even though we saw him in Creature Commando and he did not look like Robert Pattinson, until we see Batman in the flesh. And honestly, casting doesn't, until he is in a live-action movie and is not Robert Pattinson, every single Batman development will stroke the flames of that rumor mill,
Mm-hmm.
specifically the notion that Pattinson is being integrated, or but that's one of the things where I'm not so sure if that's one of the reasons for the rewrite, because up until now we were told that Batman would only maybe potentially be a cameo, and this movie got greenlit, it got written, it got all these names attached to it in the pre-production stage when Batman hadn't even been cast at all. So maybe they are rewriting it to include more Batman. Maybe that's some focus testing. Oh, this movie's just not going to sell unless you get Batman in here in some function. Um, but yeah, it really is a mystery, and it sort of flies in the face of what we were promised about the DCU. Um, the notion that they would only get greenlit if the scripts were good enough.
Yep. Yeah, no, I totally agree. So this begs the question, all right, we're rewriting the script or rewriting it from the beginning. Does this new guy have a pitch that's even better? Was it a situation of like, okay, we've greenlit Clayface, everyone, and we're super excited about this film, and anybody that brings us a script that we really like, we will greenlight it. And this guy was like, hey, I have a script for Clayface. And they're like, this is way better than what we had before. Forget that old script. We're going to make this new movie. That's obviously ridiculous. I don't think that's what's happening. But it just, again, it doesn't gel with what we were told and what we were promised, which was like story first, everything else second. Now, could it be a situation where like the original writer is like, I don't want to do it anymore, or something like that, or I don't know how like the contracts work or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like, did they buy the script from the guy, and then they can do with what they want? Was the guy like that?
To a real issue as well, where Clayface wasn't even announced in the initial wave of movies, right? That was Superman, Supergirl, Brave and the Bold. Um, that was
Creature
it for
Commandos. Are you
yeah,
talking about
for
just movies?
movies. Yeah, I think that was the lineup. And then we start hearing about Clayface, and there's no official sort of announcement. It's just James Gunn talking about it on Threads, and then these certain publications. It's kind of like leakish. It doesn't seem like, oh, here's a big celebratory reveal. There is no what did they call the DC fandom?
Mm-hmm.
That's defunct. So it speaks to a sort of spirit of instability, of unsuredness, that the public really shouldn't be let in on. Movies, they very often go through this sort of gestation process, but when these things are revealed, it gives a sense of this is not something that they want us to think. This is not something they want us to engage with. They want us to know a Clayface movie is happening. They care about scripts first and foremost, and that's pretty much it. But in a less than official capacity, we're learning all of these sort of behind the scenes details that for the bulk of the history of Hollywood was something you'd only find out in a book or something, or a DVD behind the scenes years after the movie was produced.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but a lot of this stuff is coming out, and you throw in the Nature of the Authority movie. That actually, now that I remember, that was announced in the initial sort of introductory announcement for the DCU, and now James Gunn, in just a thread release, says, "Yeah, we don't know how to make it fit."
Mm-hmm.
Um, Presumably, I don't think he had said this at the time, but retroactively, he would have only said that if they had a good enough script, right? So throw that to the pile of movies that had good enough scripts. We only greenlight good enough of movies that apparently it wasn't good enough for one reason or another. An Authority movie would not be good enough at this stage, and then Sergeant Rock also has tumultuous behind the scenes details. Say what you will, obviously it's not as catastrophic as you explained in the last podcast.
Yeah.
It's not canned outright. No one's getting fired or canceled over the production, but it is getting delayed, and we're hearing these, back and forth. Is this person going to play it? Did this person back out? And it's not an ideal way to get on board with this universe. And we talked about that a few episodes prior, where he announced more television shows, or Warner Brothers DC, through an outlet, was describing these TV shows, and then again, just on threads, shoved in some little corner of the internet that most people aren't privy to. He's like, yeah, none of them are canon, and Brave and the Bold is probably not canon. Maybe we could fit it in, but it doesn't seem like that's a motivating factor of it being made. And so it's just mounting towards Superman. Superman is coming out. It will be made. The script is finished. Supergirl seems to be trucking along well enough, but until the doors are blown off, the hinges with Superman, it seems like there's some trouble in paradise, and what we were promised might not be exactly what we get. And at this point, we can only hope that whatever script they land on, and whatever director they choose, will be good enough that this tumultuous period will be easily forgotten.
Yeah, I'm curious how extensive the rewrites are. Are we doing a ground up rewrite? Are we doing just a little bit here, a little bit there to change things slightly to make it, I guess, more cohesive in the DC universe as far as the vision they have for the universe? If that were the case, then why not get the original guy to do it? I don't know why you would need a new guy to come in and do it. Maybe that guy's busy writing something else, and he's like, I genuinely don't know how it works together. So maybe it's nothing. Maybe it is just a little bit of rewrite, little touch of this, little touch of that. We just got to change a couple of things, and this other guy is busy on production for something else, and we need somebody to come in and do it. So that could be the case, or it could be a completely different friggin' movie. I genuinely don't know. Yeah, so I don't know if it's worth speculating on one or the other. I would hope for just minor little rewrite before we get even started. Just make sure the script is as solid, as tight as it can be within the DCU, so we don't have to change any shit later, and we don't have to make a post-credit scene that we never follow up, like Scorpion. Just saying, that guy, is he ever gonna do anything? But yeah, I hope that ends up being the case. As far as other news, I think this is something that you and I can really dig our teeth into. Teen Titans movie is official now, because we knew that a script was being written for it. It is now, I think, a step further along in the process, as Warner Brothers Studios head Mike DeLuca confirmed that a Teen Titans live-action movie is being made at DC Studios, and James Gunn had previously stated that Anna Nogueira, who wrote Supergirl, was writing the script. I think, personally, that Teen Titans could be a landmark film for superhero movies, specifically. If we're going to call superhero movies at this point, are basically its own genre of film, like a Western, if you will. They just are at this point. They're imbued and embedded and nestled into pop culture in a way where I think it just is its own sort of genre. Summer blockbuster superhero movie. I think it's something really, really important because, one, it's a beloved team already that has a dedicated fan base. We've talked about this in previous episodes where multiple generations have grown up on different versions of the Teen Titans. Gen X with the new Teen Titans, Millennials with the Teen Titans TV show on Cartoon Network, and now Gen Z with Teen Titans Go. That's three generations that have definitive versions of these characters that they absolutely love. So that's one. Two, they could completely beat Marvel to the punch with an actual young team that makes sense. You don't need to do any outside world building for them because they're already so iconic. Like, we don't, and most of these characters in the team are their own thing, right? They're not underneath another superhero. They're not a sidekick. Obviously, Robin is an exception. Wonder Girl would be an exception. The Flash would be an exception as well. But if we're taking the new Teen Titans team, which I'm assuming they'll use, Cyborg, Beast Boy, Raven, Starfire are all their own character with their own legacy, right? That they sort of define themselves. And I think that's really important. Whereas with other studios, there are a lot of legacy characters that are kind of, I mean, the idea that fans have had is we're kind of modge-podging all these legacy characters into something so we can have like a Young Avengers with like Hawkeye and Miss Marvel and all these people, right? So I think it could be incredibly important, but also super exciting for us just being big Teen Titans fans.
Yeah, absolutely. These are some of the most beloved DC characters. I mean, when you really think about the fact that, Starfire and Raven and Cyborg, Beast Boy, those four specifically sort of exist in their own entity, I think the X-Men, it's sort of comparable where there are a few X-Men members that are so intrinsically connected to that team,
Yeah,
whereas, you
yeah,
look at characters like Wolverine, he's sort of a solo operative. He's also been on the Avengers. I think he's kind of more of like a Robin equivalent in
yeah.
terms of
I mean, you can't really think of
their
Wolverine without thinking of the X-Men, though. I feel like that's just
right. And
that's just
I feel
logic,
like
right?
it's similar enough. Like when people see Robin, they probably think
Batman.
three things immediately. They think Batman and Robin. They think the Teen Titans, and then whatever next step character they take the place of, whether it's Nightwing or Red Hood or Red Robin,
Yeah.
or potentially Batman. Those are probably the concepts that when you see Robin, you're immediately interfacing with. I feel like Wolverine is probably a similar thing because he's got his own solo operations. He has other teams, other responsibilities. But the Teen Titans and they are really the X-Men of DC in a big way. In fact, they crossed them over in
Yep, that's true.
in the 80s, because they were the two most selling books at the time from both publishers or either publishers. And I think they do fill a very similar niche. They talk about cutting social issues. Obviously, with young characters, they develop their powers, they develop their personalities, they're interfacing with society at large. A lot of, you look at Starfire, look at Raven, Cyborg, for sure, those three characters, they have a lot to say about, dealing with contemporary issues or even just with Raven, they're really all outsiders. They're really they're from different worlds or different dimensions or different strata. Just societally, Raven has to learn how to control her emotions because she is afraid that if she gives in, she'll give way to Trigon. And then Starfire, similarly, if she gives into her righteous fury, it can lead to destruction because of how powerful she is. And then Cyborg, I think, has a lot to say about similarly dealing with parts of yourself that you don't understand or maybe frighten you, or you feel that it's unjust that you did not ask for this responsibility or for people to look at you a certain way
Yeah, a
because
character
in this case he's a cyborg.
reflects a lot of people's self-worth and their identity. I think is a huge part of Cyborg as well. I think each one of these characters is very relatable in their own way, which is what makes the team so special. Yeah, I mean, ideal team. What's your roster?
I think ideally I would want the whole gambit of the new Teen Titans roster, which does include Aqualad, Speedy, Kid Flash, Donna Troy, the sort of Fab Five, give or take, from the original Teen Titans in the '60s, and then adding the new Teen Titans roster. I think that is the definitive team. You could definitely pluck a few characters out there, maybe swap them out as we get sequels.
Yeah,
But the trimmed, like, say, not so ideal for me, but maybe hyper efficient, is of course the animated series lineup, specifically Dick Grayson. I don't care what role he's in, really. Um, but Dick Grayson, Starfire, Raven, Beast Boy, Cyborg. Um, to me, that is the most hyper efficient,
Yeah, I agree.
lean lineup.
That
But
roster right there is the money lineup. Like you were saying, you
yeah,
can add in additional members that I think deserve their time in the spotlight and have significant stories within the Teen Titans canon, as it were, especially Kid Flash, his relationship with the rest of the team. But Donna Troy is somebody that has gotten a lot more shine, especially recently. These are characters that people care about. I think I think that Aqualad, unfortunately, is a little bit on the wayside there
yeah,
most most of the time these days, and has even talking about Garth specifically, has even been overshadowed by Calderon in a lot of different ways, especially with the popularity of Young Justice. So yeah, it's a tough ask to get Aqualad, I think, specifically. But if I
yeah.
were a betting man, I would say it would be the lean, mean fighting machine that is the Teen Titans, the Cartoon Network lineup. Maybe you can have those other characters hop in and out, or maybe you just do them all. I think it's a tough. I think it's a tough question. I really do, because you can't please. I mean, I guess you could please everybody and put them all in there,
Yeah.
but I don't even think that's, again, also pleasing everybody, because the more characters you have in a movie, the less time that each character will get. You have to make some sacrifices somewhere. And if you're not planning on like a trilogy or something, then the cuts become even harder. Because if we take a look at, again, just James Gunn's track record,
Mhm.
each Guardians movie has done a fantastic job of giving everybody their time, but somebody in each movie gets the majority of the time.
Mhm.
But that was spread across 3 films, so you had the room to stretch. And he did add new characters into the team. Mantis showed up. Um, Cosmo showed up. You had Yondu was a brief little part of the team. Obviously,
Yep.
Kragan joined the team as well. So I think you can start with the smaller team and then expand it, just so everybody gets as much time as possible.
Which is what they did in the books, right? But I think we're probably going to make our way backwards
I
compared to the books
Yeah, I mean, if
because
you're
the
talking like,
cartoon team is so
are you
iconic.
talking like
It
original
is.
Teen Titans, right?
Yeah, the Fab Five,
Yes, yes, like you
you
mentioned.
know, yeah, Dick Grayson, Donna Troy, Wally West, Aqualad, and Speedy.
The
Um,
team before they even had a book, before Teen Titans was even its own thing.
they had a they first appeared in another book, but they did get their own
Right,
solo
they
title.
they
That's why
did.
it's
They did.
it's New Teen
Yep.
Titans
Yep.
in the '80s because it was a relaunch of that title. But I had the same train of thought. I was thinking, similar team up movies. What is the roster? How far can it expand before people get kind of left in the wayside? Because I don't, as a big fan of basically every member of the Teen Titans, especially when it comes to the new Teen Titans, I think Garth is pretty underutilized. I think he honestly could go. He's never been a great character in my opinion. There's not an amazing Garth story arc. But
Which is unfortunate.
the
He's always like the guy that shows up and they're like, "Oh, hey, it's Garth. Like, remember he was on the team before, guys." Like,
Can't forget Garth. I mean, they killed him off in the Titan show. He was the obvious like, okay, if someone's got to go, then he does in the live action DC Universe original series. But the Teen Titans cartoon show has 5 members, 5 members of the core roster, and they never really expanded to a point where you could say this is a new staple character, right? You'd have
closest would be
Aqualad
like
for
Terra, probably.
right. Tara had maybe half a season
Hmm.
of regular appearances. So 6 members is sort of where we sit there, and then similar superhero team up movies. You look at the first Avengers, and
Six.
that's the 6,
Yep.
right? So potentially we could add someone to that roster. I think Kid Flash, Wally,
Hmm.
has I would most want to see him added. I think his
Yeah.
power set is unique. I think his relationship, especially to Dick Grayson, is a very important, touchstone in the comics. And I think he has a lot of autonomy as a character. I think Donna Troy would be great as well. My big fear with adding these people, because like I said, I love all the members, is I wouldn't want them just on the screen arbitrarily to say, oh, they're in there, but they don't get any
Yeah, I
any
agree. I agree.
actual
Yeah.
development.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, and so I was looking at the first Avengers. You have six, and then maybe you could argue, Nick Fury's on the poster,
Hmm.
so maybe he has enough screen time
He
to
does.
warrant
He
sort
does.
of,
I think
yeah.
as the rest of the team, he's got just as much.
Right. So that's maybe seven characters you could fit in there. And then by Guardians 3, I was looking at that poster around the time you had brought up that movie. But you have, was it Kraglin, his brother, James Gunn's brother?
Oh,
Um, is that his name? Kraglin?
I called him Kragan, but that I've been
Maybe
watching too
it's.
much Special Victims Unit. That's the name of the
Okay.
police, the head of the unit.
Okay. I think it's
Yeah, it's
Kraglin.
Kraglin.
So Kraglin, Mantis, Quill, Drax, Nebula, Gamora, Rocket, Groot. So that's like eight.
Hmm.
And then give or take, I forget all the whoever you could argue has an arc in that, in the third one. But in theory, I think you could expand the roster, include Wally, maybe include Donna. I would like to see Roy. I mean, the thing with a lot of the Teen Titans characters is, and with team books in general, with team ups, is if a character can't sell their own book, put them on a popular team. That's basically the Avengers roster in a nutshell, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like those guys, and even if you see in the movies, a lot of their franchises are lopsided in terms of popularity. Thor, they couldn't really get to work for the first two movies. Um, Black Widow and Hawkeye did not have as much cachet initially as the other members. So and that's a derivation of the comics, right? So you look at the roster of the team, and it's like, well, Ant-Man and Thor, they weren't really selling, but if you put them on a team with, maybe Captain America, Captain America's a pretty popular character. They'll elevate the status, and so you
Yeah.
think of Titans members that might get left out, and it's like, are we realistically gonna see? Like maybe you get Donna in the Wonder Woman prequel show. I
Hmm.
would love that. I think that'd be great. Um, you know, uh, Green Arrow is not in the verse. He is in the verse if we take Peacemaker,
Yeah.
but he's kind of been deconfirmed for
For
Lantern.
all of
So are
us
we?
were deceived. As-
Right, right. That was the first great deception. Are we gonna get Roy Harper in something? If not Teen Titans, that's sort of the big
let's
question.
let's l- let's bring in an uncomfortable question. I think that we
Hmm.
need to address.
Let's do it.
Are we gonna get the team? Are we gonna get the team that we've been talking about? We're gonna get the All Stars. We're gonna get the '92 Dream Team. Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, and Larry Bird. Are we gonna get that, or are we gonna get a different team? Because we have a different Robin in the universe. Are we gonna get his second rate JV junior varsity team with like Bunker and Jin and
Yeah.
Crush, and or are we gonna are we gonna get the new 52 team? Like these are uncomfortable questions that I think we have to get to. And personally, in my heart of hearts, I want to believe that James is a man of the people. And despite the fact that we're gonna have Damian Wayne be the active Robin in the universe, our Teen Titans team's got to be the team that everyone knows.
Yeah. No, I mean,
We
the
have
Teen
Lobo's
Titans.
daughter in there. That's why we're setting up Lobo and Supergirl.
Oh,
We're connecting the dots.
yeah. I mean, I think that would be a massive misstep
Yeah, a
and a
huge
massive
L.
loss because that relegates the Marv Wolfman team Unk status,
Yeah,
right?
to Titans status.
Right. And I like the Titans in the sense of the Teen Titans are sidekicks,
Hmm.
and then they develop their own sort of ecology, their own sort of ecosystem. They take in members that, like you said up front, are wholly unto themselves, and then that informs the Titans as a team wholly unto itself, right?
Yeah.
By the time you look at Starfire and Raven and Cyborg and Nightwing and in some iterations Wally is the Flash, can you really say that's like a B team? Maybe in a way they are compared to the Justice League, but they're also sort of just their own thing, right? So
Hmm.
you look at the X-Men, you don't say like technically it is the B team compared to the Avengers.
Yeah.
There's no arguing that, but it's also sort of just maybe they're equal, but they're just it's two different flavors. It's just two different
They're
stories.
definitely not a JV team, and I think that
Right.
that was a theme of the comics for many, many years. Is we are living in the shadow of our former masters. Not to use extreme rhetoric, but we're living in the shadow of the Flash and Batman and Aquaman and Wonder Woman. These titans, these heroes, the
Yeah.
Justice League. We need to form our own identity, and our identities are intrinsically tied to these heroes that taught us how to be heroes, and we want to make our own way, which is obviously very relatable to anyone that's ever had parents in their life or a parental figure where you are trying to find out who you are as a person separated from your parents, and not necessarily in a bad way, but growing up and changing is and that's what's so great about the Teen Titans, is that relatability, one to one across everyone on the planet, essentially. Um, I lost my train of thought, but yeah, I think the characters are. Oh, we're getting back on the tracks. I think they did start off with that sort of like, okay, we're the junior varsity Justice League, and then they grew into their own. If they wanted to start off as the JV Justice League again, I think that would be fine. I don't think they ever were that. They certainly perceived themselves as that and had to grow into their own team as they grew into their own people and their own heroes.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think at this point, their status within just pop culture and for general audiences would be at the level of these other huge teams.
Yeah.
Or at least close. I mean, I would say the Avengers are probably like the biggest team just because of the MCU's massive popularity with the Justice League behind them and just the general public's opinion.
Yeah.
I think for the majority of comic book years, it was the Justice League far and away. But things sort of flipped on their head in 2012, as Warner Brothers would tell you. We don't have to make a team up movie. Our heroes stand on their own. Oh, that
Yeah.
Avengers thing is kind of taking over the world. What can we do to make a
Uh-oh.
Justice League movie as soon as possible?
Yeah.
But I think the Teen Titans are right under that. I think it would be like Avengers, Justice League, X-Men, Teen Titans. And those are the four teams, the only four teams that I would even consider for like a Mount Rushmore of superhero teams. I don't know if there's another team you would throw in there, even for
Yeah,
consideration.
I can't think off the top of my head. It would probably just come down to splitting hairs of like the Avengers or the new Avengers, like Spider-Man and Wolverine on their roster.
Yeah.
Um, Fantastic Four, some people would say, but I don't think anyone in this call would say that, unfortunately for them. But yeah, I
The
think
Guardians of the
all
Globe,
those
the
right. I
Seven.
think all those qualities would be lesser if Raven and all of them have already had their progression off screen.
Yeah.
They've already sort of reached the apogee of their potential, um, compared to Damien's team. And again, this is a talking point of mine that I've been trying to put out there in the ether so that it doesn't happen. But you look at the MCU, 10 years of Steve Rogers is a flash in the pan compared to his comic history.
Mm-hmm.
And by inverse, that is, an eternity of Sam Wilson Captain America stories, and the reality is they have to have him fight Red Hulk or something, because Sam Wilson does not have exclusive, villains. And this is a topic that you touched up on. I think it's a lot worse in the Marvel camp, compared to, say, someone like Nightwing. But when you truncate the history and say start with Damian and have it be his Titans team, and already have, Wally and Garth and all of them sort of already having done their thing, already sort of,
They're adults
gone.
now. Like
Right.
they're equals with the Justice League members or whatever. It's just kind of
Yeah,
out of whack.
they've already, experienced their growing pains. That lessens the potential, because, what are you gonna have? You're gonna have Damien fighting Brother Blood.
Hmm.
You're gonna have Damien fighting,
Deathstroke.
fighting Deathstroke. Like, nobody really wants to see that.
Yeah.
Um, they tried it with the direct-to-video DC movies. I think that would be a nightmare scenario if that was sort of the inspiration for the live-action Teen Titans team. Um, I think that would be really bad, and something that they did in those DVD movies is they gave Damian Dick's position on Dick's roster,
Yeah,
right?
they did that in
So
the comics as well. And to be fair,
yeah,
those were the best Damien Teen Titans books, but
right,
largely carried by the fact that we already knew and loved Beast Boy, Raven, Starfire, and Cyborg, and Damien being like leading the team was just a funny like thought, and they all were like, "Huh?" Like who is
yeah,
this kid? Like we already did this sort of thing, and it didn't really last. The novelty wore off pretty quickly because those characters are sort of above that, I think, and not
yeah,
only did the writers like realize that. I think Damien and the characters all realized that as well throughout the run. I recommend it. I think it's good. It's worth reading, but I don't think that is something that you can do here. And if you wanted, genuinely, I'm going to compliment the live action Titans TV show. Genuinely, I think that would be a good way to approach it. Again, if Dick is already going to be Nightwing, you can have him sort of reassemble the Titans, and maybe you have the original squad be a little bit older. Now, it would suck to have Dick not be contemporaries with the team he's most widely
yeah,
associated with, that being the new Teen Titans team that I just said: Beast Boy, Starfire, Raven, and Cyborg. But if you wanted to make him a little bit older than those characters and they be the new Teen Titans, because we're already starting with a universe where we've already seen or we've already had the history of Robin growing up and becoming Nightwing, and that's like a huge pivotal moment within the Teen Titans team. And he's like, all right, it's like I'm a man now, and
yeah,
if he's already that man, then you have to have. I feel like the Teen Titans the hook of the team is what I said, is them getting out of the shadows of their mentors and learning to become their own people and their own heroes. And if you don't have that element, if they're already the Titans, then you're taking away the main drawing power of what makes the team so special. And not to say that once you're past that arc, which we have been for decades, once you're past that arc, that doesn't mean that the characters have no intrinsic value. They have their new struggles, and those have recently been not just getting out of the shadow, but becoming equals with the Justice League in the public eye. The public eye being the public of that live in the DC universe that is the comics. So if you're skipping all of that, you're missing a huge chunk of the story. So how do we do it? Do we do a prequel? Is Nightwing going to be older and like have Beast Boy and Raven be younger? Because I mean, Starfire was older. Cyborg was not even part of the team. He was on Doom Patrol.
yeah.
So I don't think they're going to do that. But how do you handle Cyborg? Is he going to also be younger? I think you could make it work. It would really suck. I'm a Starfire Dick guy. I not to ship people on the DCU experience, but hey, nothing against it. I would hate for them to be like, she's like 13 and he's like 25. That would be, I wouldn't like that.
No good.
I would not like that. So at the very least, she should be his age. But if everyone else was younger, I don't think I would have a huge problem with it. I prefer them all to be around the same age, but I don't think I'd have a huge issue if the Fab Five, as you have dubbed them, were a little bit older than the new Teen Titans, and we're getting started with that iconic team.
I would say, ideally, you do a flashback. We know, especially with a Sergeant Rock movie, on the, at least potentially, that's sort of, ruminating, trying to get off the ground. It seems to be pretty clear that there's easily potential for flashback movies, for movies set, decades in the past, or a decade, or however many years ago in this timeline, that Dick Grayson was Robin. And I will say, I think that's necessary because those relationships are sort of, they're needed for these characters to grow into the versions of them that we want. When you see Nightwing today or Wally West, it's because, in part, because they're like real people in a way. These experiences, they accumulate, and
their histories
form.
are informed by the relationships and experiences that they had with these other characters.
Exactly, and I think it should be that specific roster, and I find it, it's disrespectful, honestly, the notion of sort of mixing and matching and remixing, because the illusion that we undertake when we get engaged with, fiction in general, but especially these, soap operatic comic books, these long form stories, is the illusion is, like we sort of, said, is they feel like real people. We convince ourselves these are real relationships. We interface with them in a way. And, it's disrespectful, to say, well, this person would become this person whether they met this person or not, right? That's not really, how it works. And I think it would do a great disservice to say have Tim, be in the place of Dick, or Damian in the place of Dick, and that's really the core functionary here. It is the Robin question. Which Robin is it going to be at which point in his progression? Because I do think that character is sort of the axis at which any Teen Titans dynamic is sort of justified, right? Like Tim's Young Justice team, that relationship, Bart Allen, Connor Kent, Cassandra Sandsmark, and Tim Drake, that's a special sort of alchemical dynamic that cannot be replicated by, just slotting in Starfire in the place of Wonder Girl, or, Cyborg in the place of Superboy. You can't do it. It doesn't work. It's unnatural. It's unsightly. It needs to be
It's ungodly.
It's ungodly. And so, I think ideally you do a flashback. Ideally, maybe it can sort of foreshadow Damian's own team. Maybe instead what you do is you have Dick's team in the past. We see that play out in that movie. And then Damian in maybe a Brave and the Bold sequel, or you do Teen Titans 2, and you throw Damian in the mix, and he's going to try to make his own team. Maybe
you do a little current day flashback mashup type deal. You know what I'm saying? A plot, B plot. You just do what James Gunn did in Guardians 3, where you have like the modern team, but then you get flashbacks of Rocket's like experience throughout the film. Maybe the modern team is like coming back together, or maybe Damian's making a team and we flashback to like the glory days or something throughout the film. That'd be a nice little compromise, I think. And I'd be down for that. If we're establishing ourselves in a universe where Nightwing is already Nightwing and Damian is Robin, then I think that's a pretty good compromise.
Yeah, Yeah, I think now that I
Parallels,
think about
mirrors
it,
to the current day situation being similar. Like my team's been through this type of shit before. I don't
mm,
know. I think it could work.
it's also interesting too, though, to think we'd have a fully formed Teen Titans probably before a fully formed Justice League. I think
Yeah,
that prospect is so far out,
that's wacky.
because yeah, I think the stigma surrounding the Snyderverse, surrounding the two Justice League movies we got, um, I don't think we're gonna get that. We do have a superhero team currently. What was it, the Justice Gang?
Yeah, the
In the
Justice
form
Gang.
of Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl, Metamorpho, and Mr. Terrific. So that's four members.
Hmm.
Um, you throw Superman in the mix, maybe he'll be an honorary member. Uh,
Yeah, he's like the
but
Omni-Man of the team.
mm, right, right, sort of just a part timer,
Yeah,
auxiliary assist.
for sure.
But yeah, we have that. We have the notion of superhero teams sort of already in the universe, but I think it's probably more likely that Robin and Kid Flash, whatever their secret identities are going to be, in on a working relationship basis sooner than Batman and Flash proper.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's
which
probably true. But I think there's room for the Justice League to be expedited into the universe pretty quickly, especially with how Superman already is being marketed. Like you said, the Justice Gang exists. Superman could be like, all right, this whole team thing is like pretty sweet, but not so corporate. I'm gonna do
you
my
guys
own.
suck.
I'm gonna do my own team. I'm gonna do my own
Yeah.
thing, as Miles Morales would say, and form the Justice League, as it were. Um, that I'll be really interested to see how the Justice League come together.
Mm.
Um, they've had various origins and retellings in the past. I've always been a huge fan of the New 52 way the Justice League came together. I thought it was really organic and made a lot of sense in the
Yeah.
context of a superhero world. A giant threat
It's a
is coming.
clean,
They all are
clean,
like, yeah,
easy Hollywood-esque.
we're
Yeah.
heroes. We all show up to the same place, and we kind of like don't really don't really fuck with each other to start because we don't really know each other all that well, and it's like a big dick measuring contest. But then we like come together to beat the guy at the end.
Yep.
Like you said, it is very it's like super generic, but it like just works so well, and
Yeah.
you don't need like any sort of preamble. Like you don't need to know any of the characters for that to like kind of work. You can sort of establish their personalities on the fly, and I guess that's not to go back to this. I hate doing it, but it's being a constant parallel
Has
in
to
my
be.
mind,
Yeah. Has to
and
be done.
James Gunn has done such an excellent job at this. That's literally Guardians of the Galaxy 1. That's how the team like comes together. They're
Yeah.
not heroes. They didn't come to save anything, but they all came for this one singular purpose and happened to like meet each other. So
Yeah.
it was like super organic in that film, and then they learned to like each other and had to work together out of necessity. It just works, bro. And I'm not even like bringing up MCU for the fact of like, okay, it's the MCU, so we need to do the parallels.
Right.
It's just James Gunn stuff that I'm really
Yeah.
referencing most of the time. So he's done the superhero genre so well in the few things that he's done, 6 projects. Correct me if I'm wrong. That there's really just so much to pull from just his filmography alone to inform how the universe could come together cohesively.
Yeah. I think maybe with the Justice League that's sort of an incongruity, or maybe like an uncomfortable inevitability, is that we're gonna get a Teen Titans team. Probably. I think it'll be Dick Grayson.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. Can you do my thing with that is for me, and even though I don't think Starfire and Dick Grayson are endgame,
Hmm.
um, that is a very important
It's very formative.
relationship.
Yeah.
Very formative, whether it's positive or negative, whatever side on the argument you lie, or outcome you prefer, I should say. Very formative because Dick was somebody who saw this tragedy, had all this anger, and was trained to channel it. And by the time Starfire meets him, he has mastered it in a large component. There's a very cool Silver Age-ish era comic where it's stated that Robin, whenever he sees a criminal, he identifies the greed that took his parents. So, in a similar way, you think of like Batman, like Robert Pattinson, when he's super edgy and lashing out. That's how Dick as Robin interfaces with it. But then once he's met by Starfire, who she has been brought up in the exact opposite way. Batman would have trained Dick to channel his rage and to not let it get the better of him, for him to always control it, not the other way around. Corey has lived her whole life, being taught the opposite. On her planet, the culture encourages passionate exchanges, and a lot of the time, those manifest in violence, especially when she's in an unfamiliar territory or dynamic. She doesn't understand Earth culture, and that's a very formative thing for Dick Grayson to realize and to be faced with. And I think you just have to recognize that if you're going to attempt, because that Starfire's character arc is coming to Earth and seeing sort of certain social injustices and being aggravated by that and wanting to lash out in an extreme way, and then Dick Grayson being like, yeah, you're right, but we just can't. We're superheroes, we have to be better than that. um, that's her story. So how do you ignore that? How do you tell a different story, especially if it's going to be her origin, which I imagine it would be, because most people, know her from the cartoon, sure, but most people probably don't know her whole origin. Her origin wasn't even really tackled in the cartoon show. It was just she's kind of always, a she's sort of always against the grain. Um, but yeah, so I don't know. I don't know. I feel like it has to be Dick Grayson, and if that's the case, then you do a flashback. Batman's first appearance is a flashback in Creature Commandos. That's another instance of James Gunn being totally okay, seemingly, with this sort of out of order storytelling. Um, but I think that is with the Justice League and it being the Teen Titans will have preceded them. I think something that we would think would be an organic connection is the Deathstroke and Bane movie could very easily
Yeah.
set up a his role in the Teen Titans. I think that is the definitive villain that you would put against the Titans. The some of the other famous ones again from the shows, Blackfire or Brother Blood. But it's really Deathstroke that I think is a dark side equivalent of the Titans, and that movie could be great setup for that and could be an organic through line. But then that would have to be a flashback, right? If the Teen Titans movie is, and presumably the main villain of that would be Deathstroke, then
Hmm.
the Deathstroke Bane movie would have to take place in the past. So I don't know. I think Damian being the Robin of the modern day, I don't know if it's worth it. Maybe it is, but it's yet to be seen.
Yeah. The conundrum of the Teen Titans being a team before the Justice League is fun to think about, in the sense of the Teen Titans. How will they feel about that when a Justice League is formed? Because let's assume that the Teen Titans have been a thing even prior to the movie that's going to come out.
Mhm.
Hey, we came together as the sidekicks of these heroes that are now forming a team, and formed our own team when previously it was like the precedent was not to work as a team other than in these small little groups or with one or two people at a time. And we formed a team. We did it first, and now this new team, just because they have Superman, they're better than us. Like, it'll just be interesting to see if that's the case, how the team will react to it. Especially specific members of the team. I think I'm thinking of like how Garfield would would think of that. Those are just funny thoughts in my head. But yeah, I'm really excited for a potential team, as are you. And how could you not? I mean, like we said, I think they're up there on the Mount Rushmore of superhero teams. Inarguably, have cemented their legacy there. Okay, maybe not inarguably. Like you said, I think a lot of people would argue for the Fantastic Four. But yeah, I think the Teen Titans are definitely 100% up there. And now they're getting their live action film. So, yeah.
Hopefully it's not an authority situation where it's announced and then shelved because they can't. Maybe they're asking these same questions. They're like, we don't know. It's kind of messy to have a bunch of flashbacks and then Damian be in the future.
Yeah.
But I hope not.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I think we crushed it. That was about an hour on two topics. We didn't even talk about Peacemaker. What do you know? Peacemaker's coming out. Looks cool. There's like a 30-second teaser. Yeah, Frank Grillo's in it. It'll be really interesting to see Peacemaker have to tackle experiences with Rick Flag Sr. having killed the man's son. So we'll see how that goes. Not sure if there's going to be some sort of multiverse, a different dimension. We don't know. Peacemaker's got a different suit. We're seeing it. It looks cool. But really not a ton to dig into there. Just really like quick boom, 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 sort of like marketing type thing. It wasn't really a trailer, or I wouldn't even consider it like a teaser trailer. It's just like a quick
exciting imagery.
Yeah, it's punching the anyway, go watch it. It's cool. But yeah, that's gonna be it for us here this week in the DCU Experience. Thank you to everybody that stopped by to say hi. Thank you to everybody that left a comment. We didn't get any donations for True's plane tickets, but maybe next week, if True's here to really start begging for that. But yeah, we are trying to fly True over here, so if you are able to super chat, we would really appreciate that. Trying to fund his trip over here to go see Superman with us, so we could all do the DCU Experience live. But yeah, anything else you'd like to say, Crisis, before we sign off?
I would say Deathstroke is Nightwing's arch nemesis.
Yes, I did dispute that. I did not dispute that.
And any possible argument stemming from that premise I'm flipping them right here and now. There's no wiggle room.
Yeah.
I don't even remember, what was your claim? What was the controversy? What was the controversial claim?
My claim was that like Nightwing doesn't have any villains. That's my claim as far as the general audience is concerned. Like, gun to their head, they could probably name every Batman villain. They could probably name several Superman villains. They're not going to name a single... They're not pulling Deathstroke out, I can tell you that.
They might say Slade because
yeah,
of
they might say Slade.
The show,
that's true. They might say
which
Slade.
I think is totally
fair. That was
fair.
The only point I was making. I do think Nightwing has villains. I think the Teen Titans have great villains. But I think most people would also consider Slade or Deathstroke to be a Teen Titans villain and not a Nightwing villain. But I would concede the ground that he is a Nightwing villain above all else.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a the point I was making was very hyperbolic, and I think it's true for general audiences that Nightwing has no villains.
It's tough.
What I said last week was I could call my mom right now and she could rattle off 10. And I can tell you, my mom probably can't rattle off 10 superheroes, but she could give me 10 Batman villains, is what I was getting at.
I think that it's sort of a non-point because, and I don't want to drag this on and on, but it kind of goes back to if True were here, he would say, and I would agree, that it's because Batman has been so overexposed,
Oh,
compared to
blame Batman, whatever.
like we all love Wonder Woman, and we could probably name a few Wonder Woman
Yeah, no.
villains.
Deathstroke,
But can anyone remember? Can
Batman
anyone
has
remember?
been very overexposed, and I did say last week that mostly that Adam West's show did the heavy lifting of that, of putting those villains into the zeitgeist, into popular culture, and forever shall they remain. But those characters have been used again and again and again and again and again, which is why they're associated with Batman. But I mean, everyone will give you Lex Luthor if you ask Superman. That's just the no ifs, ands, or buts. But maybe it's a wider issue of no superheroes have villains other than a couple that are like super iconic.
Like, I don't know if they would, like, with Superman,
Everyone
who
knows
is
Lex
the most
Luthor.
popular.
Everyone knows
They know Lex Luthor. Do they know Metallo?
No,
You're not gonna get a
no.
Metallo.
They don't know anyone else past that. No.
You're probably not gonna get a Bizarro.
No.
And then with Darkseid, it's like, well, is he a Justice League villain? Like, you get a similar debate where it's like,
Darkseid
I
is
think
his own villain.
Yeah, Darkseid could be a DC universe. He's just a giant threat.
Yeah,
he can
he's just
pull up
the
on
villain
anybody.
of the entire comic book structure. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I think it's more of a, it's like most people don't even know who like Green Lantern is. They're like, if you asked your mom who Green Lantern was, could she say his secret identity?
Probably not. I could call her right now if we want to find out.
Yeah, let's have her be the guest on the next podcast. If we don't have 4 members,
Mom
then
trivia.
your mom couldn't be the 4th.
We should get all 4 of our moms on to have
My
DC
mom grew
trivia.
up. My mom grew up on the Wonder Woman show.
Uh,
I don't know what villains were even. I don't know if they had Cheetah in that. They might have just been making people up for that one.
Yeah, like Power Ranger
But the
villains.
the thing about with Adam West Batman 2 is, and it kind of goes against like the best villains from that show, obviously from the comics, but those get reiterated over and over.
Mhm.
But do people remember, like, what was it, King Tut?
Yeah, they do.
No, they don't. They really don't.
They do.
They really don't. They really don't. Like, there were so many random. Do you remember Siren?
There were, but it was the reoccurring ones that really, like the Riddler,
King Tut had a few
Catwoman,
appearances.
Joker, and Penguin. Like those 4. I don't even think was Two-Face even in that show.
I don't
Two-Face
think
is
so.
like, who would be the Mount? All right, last thing we'll do before we get out of here, really quickly. Who's the Mount Rushmore of Batman villains? Like, if you had to name the 4 most iconic, we'll go from iconic, not like necessarily important. I would say, off the top of my head, it's Catwoman, it's Joker. Like, those are indisputable 1 and 2. Joker's obviously 1. Catwoman is 2. I would say Penguin, and I would say Riddler. I think those 4 are who I would put on the Mount Rushmore of Batman villains.
I would probably say Catwoman, Joker for sure, and then I think Scarecrow.
Scarecrow, really?
Because he was in the Nolan movies. He was in all 3 of the Nolan movies.
He was.
And he was also right. And he was in Arkham Asylum and Arkham Knight. I would say Scarecrow stocks. He's always in every animated show.
Scarecrow's an interesting one for sure.
Yeah, I think Scarecrow's there. And then probably
I think it's like
Riddler and Two-Face is close for me.
I think it's indisputably Penguin.
I just don't know, man. Because
Riddler and Two-Face would be a lot closer for me than Riddler and Scarecrow.
Maybe. I don't know. I feel like it comes down a bit to personal taste because in terms of representation, a lot of them, like Riddler and Two-Face, have equal appearances in live action, and they've probably been, as far as the general audience is concerned, equally done right. Like, I think comic book wise, I would argue that Nolan Two-Face is pretty far off from comic Two-Face.
Yeah.
I don't think Nolan was the best with I think Joker's perfect. Everyone else kind of stinky, kind of not great
Not what you would see in the
comic.
comics at all. Type
No.
type beat.
Yeah, but yeah, I would say like Riddler and Two-Face were both done terribly in the Schumacher movie, and then they were both done, general audience wise, really good in Dark Knight and the Batman.
Yeah. But everyone
Um,
loves the Adam West versions. Like they're just beloved. Because
yeah, they're timeless.
I mean
for
those
sure.
were those are also just the characters from the comics. That's the goal.
Right at the
That's
time.
what they were like.
I would say to absolute final cutoff, because we're inevitably probably going to talk after the podcast anyway. Um, the Dick Grayson villains, because if there is even anyone making the argument that he doesn't have any good villains, I think there is a great lineup. I think you could easily do a trilogy of Nightwing and touch on some really great villains. I think you could do Deathstroke. Professor Pig is a Dick Grayson villain when he was Batman. James Gordon Jr. I think would be if
I
they.
like James Gordon Jr. More I'm more of a I would prefer that being a Batgirl situation, but
He's been in Batgirl books, but his peak was in his first appearance
yeah,
was in Black Mirror.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. I just think that it's more compelling for it to be Barbara. Just based on the relationship in and of itself, but no, I agree.
I would disagree because the idea of James Gordon Jr. was you look at Bruce Wayne and Jim Gordon. Those are like the two
Yeah,
fathers
it's like a
of Gotham.
it's a twisted
Mirror. It is a
yeah.
Black Mirror.
Yes, it is that
James Gordon was
the
designed as
sons
Dick
of the
Grayson's.
yes,
Yes.
I agree. But
And
then you will also have the literal brother sister relationship, which adds another new wrinkle into it. It's a different wrinkle, but I think it's like, I mean, it's come on, Batgirl's
but
brother is a
Barbara is
serial killer.
very integral in that story
No,
regardless
she is.
with Dick as the engine. And so I would say if they adapted that movie, I think James Gordon Jr. would be Joker tier. I
I
think
would love
people
that to
would
be
wake up to
a
that.
if Dick became Batman. I would love that to be his villain. I would love James Gordon to be involved as well as Barbara Gordon to be involved. I would love it to be like a family affair type deal, especially if Dick is romantically involved with Barbara at that time. I think that makes it even more interesting. I agree. He's a great character. He's a great villain. Regardless.
Yeah. Vigilante also might be hard to fathom because of how they did him in the Peacemaker show. But that
Could you
arc in New
imagine
Teen Titans, that would be crazy if he fought
those
Nightwing.
two
They wanted
going
to take
head
it
to head?
seriously. Yeah, but Vigilante in the comics, that was a great story arc about Robin's place in vigilante justice. We've seen
Mm-hmm.
that.
I got the first
You know,
appearance in the other room.
yeah, no, that's a great story arc. Of Dick Grayson sort of channeling those. It's all with superheroes in general. There's always that quandary of are they vigilantes? Where do they draw the line? Are they accessories of the current law and order as it is enforced by local governance? Do they
Or
operate outside of it?
are they vision dot philosophy where they simply invite challenge and the villains would not
Right.
exist without them?
And it's an escalation. And are they half measures?
Yeah.
Right. That was sort of the vigilante's role. And then Blockbuster as well. He definitely is the sort of kingpin of crime for Bloodhaven. And in many ways, he is Dick Grayson's nemesis. And I think when it comes to a
Netflix's
lot of
nemesis early on.
sure, and I think when it comes to a lot of these characters, it comes down to, and it can be said for basically every hero and their rogues that aren't Batman,
Hmm.
is you gotta do them right. You gotta take the best aspects from the comics, translate it to the big screen, and then they will be household names. And then you'll go like, oh yeah, no duh, like like look at Thanos. Um, I was given the Marvel Encyclopedia that was printed in like 2006. Thanos has like 1/17th of an entry on a page, and then now everyone's like, yeah, no, Thanos is like he's Darth Vader 2.0. He's the greatest.
Hmm.
He's the greatest supervillain to ever grace live action. So I think that's the
The amount of
that's the
juice a
dilemma.
good movie adaptation will give a character is absolutely insanity. That bum
Mm.
Iron Man is now the most popular Avenger
And
when
bringing
he
him back
was
is gonna make him
barely
$2 billion.
selling books before. But that first
Oh,
movie was so good. Iron Man 1.
that's still so great. Yeah.
2008, buddy, 17 years ago. Did you go see that in
Let's
the
hope
theaters?
Superman.
What were you doing 17 years ago?
Probably not. I probably did not see. Well, I saw Incredible Hulk in the theaters for sure, so it's plausible I saw Iron Man
Yeah,
in the
I went
theaters,
to see it
but
with my father. We went to see the Spider-Man movies together. It was like our thing, and he was like, "Oh, we got to go see Iron Man." I was like, "Sure." I was not a comic
I
book
saw
head at the time.
Spider-Man. I saw Spider-Man 3 in the theaters,
Yeah.
and I saw Incredible Hulk, and Iron Man came out between those two. So I don't think I I must have, unless it's
Did you see
something
The
came
Dark
up,
Knight in the
but
theaters?
I don't think so. No,
Oof. I
I don't
remember.
think so.
I remember the night I went to see it in theaters. It was a magical experience. Most definitely. I
That was your
remember
comic
seeing
book
the. It
awakening.
was.
That was
I
your
remember
awakening.
seeing the trailer as well.
Oh wow.
I mean, I saw like ahead of movies. I saw Batman Begins, but I didn't see Batman Begins in the theater until 2012 when I went to see a marathon. For there was like the midnight release of The Dark Knight, and we watched Batman Begins and The Dark Knight right before The Dark Knight Rises. So it was like one, two, three, bang, bang, bang. So that was the only time I saw that in the theater. But I do remember The Dark Knight. That was my awakening. My buddy texted me. He's like, "You want to see this?" I was like, "Sure." We went to see it. I was like, I don't want this movie to end. We didn't even have good seats. I was like front row because we like went to see it last minute. I was like watching it like this, like oh. I was
Yeah, I
like,
saw
wait a
Dark Knight
second,
Rises.
he's Two-Face. That's how stupid I was. Like
Two-Face. Oh
I
wow.
didn't even know his name was Dent.
Didn't
Like
see that
Harvey
coming.
Dent. I actually didn't. I was like, wait
Dang.
a second. Half of his face is
That's
burned off. He must be Two-Face.
He's got two of them.
Yeah. That's how
Now
bad
we're here
my
today.
comic book knowledge was, despite the fact that I watched like the Batman animated series. Like I saw every episode as a kid and the Justice League show, and I watched Teen
Yeah.
Titans. I just was not like, I don't know. It seems silly in hindsight, having seen all of that stuff, but I guess I really didn't like process it. They were like shows that I really loved and enjoyed a lot. But after I became a comic book head, I went back and rewatched them and got like a new appreciation for them. But
Yeah.
they were like Saturday morning cartoons that I would watch. It was like I love Teen Titans, but I was also going to watch Ed and Eddie right after, right? And I
Right.
probably did. I couldn't tell you 10 characters from Ed and Eddie. You know what I mean? So it's like similar to
Yeah.
that, I feel like. But
That should be the next question we ask your mom is can you name 10 Ed and Eddie characters?
well, she got 3 off the bat. I guarantee you she probably
Right.
wouldn't even get Ed and Eddie.
We got Rolf, we got Plank,
Johnny,
Johnny, yeah.
Sarah, Ed's sister.
Yeah, the Cankers, I
Jimmy,
forget their individual
Jimmy is
names.
Sarah's little friend with the braces.
Yeah.
I
Who
don't know
owned
the
Plank? What was his name?
Johnny. That was Johnny.
Okay, that's Johnny. Okay.
Yeah, the bald kid.
Well,
How,
yeah, he
how
wore
many are we at? We're
watermelon
at
on
like
his head.
6.
Something like that.
Jazz
Was that a
that
canker?
was the girl. That was the blonde girl that was hanging out with the bully. What was his name? Kyle or something like that.
Yeah, some generic bully name.
Yeah.
Man. Well, we did that. That segment's done.
I
Failing to remember 10 Ed and Eddie characters.
I've probably seen like I'm just thinking of like cartoons that I watched when I was a kid. Like I've probably seen every episode of Kids Next Door. Could not tell you the villain's name. Or they just called like
Father, bro.
was it? I was gonna say the parents. Like I've seen
Yeah.
every episode of Rugrats. Could I name all the Rugrats?
Tommy.
Tommy, Phil, Lil, Chucky.
Stu. Was there a Stu in there?
Stu Pickles was his uncle, or no, was his
Oh,
dad. I think
I remember Reptar.
Drew Pickles was his
Reptar,
uncle.
my relationship with Kaiju is
Started
similar
with
to yours.
Reptar, yeah.
Right. It's like you Reptar, who is a ripoff of Godzilla, but I'm like, no, Reptar's the thing.
Reptar. Yeah.
Yeah, the movie where they went to Paris and it was revealed that was it Chucky's mom died or something.
Yeah,
And, then,
that was a tragic thing. Like I watched it a couple years ago. Like the beginning made me cry. It's like legit. Like
Yeah.
Chucky's got no mom, bro. No one's dancing. With
yeah,
him.
you're not trained. I mean, most kids probably don't fathom that loss. You know,
Yeah.
they're not trained to have that concept. Like, wait a second, you cannot have a mom. You
Hold
know,
up.
but hold
Yeah,
up,
that
let's get
first
real
movie
in
was
here.
crazy. Tommy was trying to kill his little brother, like leave him out in the woods alone in the rain.
Well, there's
Tommy
a
was
funny
like,
story.
how old is Tommy? Tommy's 1. His
They're
brother
Rugrats.
is
They
literally a
crawl around.
newborn.
Yeah.
Chucky is a year older. He's 2. I know that because he started talking before everybody else.
Well, wasn't his first words to like the humans? Wasn't that about
Chucky's first
his
word was
stepmom?
no.
Right, but they communicated to each other presumably through baby code.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
For
I don't think it was
whatever
like a
baby
Toy
speech
Story
was.
situation where they spoke only to each other and then you know.
But did they
stopped.
understand their parents? They did or didn't? Angelica
I
could
think
Angelica could talk to both.
she was bilingual.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think the parents they
wasn't-
they were interpreting what they were saying and doing, but
No,
it
the
became
kids
an
could
adventure.
the Rugrats could understand the parents.
That's what I'm saying. But
Yeah.
they would interpret, it would be filtered through their lens.
Oh, I
So
see.
they wouldn't have a full grasp. I think that was most likely the impetus for most of their adventures was misinterpreting something to do with their parents
Right.
or grandparents in the case of the one old man.
What
I
was
forget
his name? Was that Grandpa
He was
Stu?
in the Holocaust. I think he was a Holocaust survivor.
That was a great thing about the Rugrats, man. They were progressive as hell. They had an episode every holiday for every like religion. You had the Jewish episode with like the Passover, and I love that episode. I'm not even Jewish. They had the Christian episode. They had the Kwanzaa episode with the neighbor. They probably had one for Chucky's mom and sister. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They were on top of it.
Yeah.
And every episode was peak. But if that came out today, people would lose their minds.
Can you sing the Rugrats theme song?
Ba 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 ba. Of course I can. Music sticks with you in a different way that the character Harvey Dent being Two-Face does.
No, yeah.
I knew who
absolutely.
Two-Face was, just to be clear. I just did not know his name was Harvey Dent. So we went through the whole movie, and I was like, this Harvey Dent guy's legit. Who's this?
Yeah, I mean that's my problem. He's not really Two-Face. He just goes crazy.
Yeah.
You know, Two-Face is two people.
So if you
But-
go into the Dark Knight knowing the deep lore, which isn't deep at all, it's like surface level lore.
No, if you watch the cartoon, you get it.
If you
would
go
know the
into it, the
difference.
opening scene with Harvey Dent is him in the thing.
Yes.
And it's obvious,
Where
like,
he
he's
is.
going to get the acid in the face, right? But
Yeah.
we don't do that. He pulls a gun. He says, you better buy American.
Yeah. If you want to kill a
Public
a
servant?
public official,
Yeah.
public servant,
Something like that.
you need to.
I recommend
go
you buy
buy
American.
Chinese.
Bailiff, get him out of here. But, Your Honor, I wasn't done.
What did he say next? What happens next?
Isn't it just a hard? Everyone laughs. It's a hard cut to the hallway, and like he's getting glazed by,
Yeah.
Rachel.
Rachel. And then
She's like doing the Maggie
Yeah.
Gyllenhaal thing.
we need to rewatch those
Let's
movies, man.
recite the movie from beginning to end.
All right. There's an opening monologue about.
No, is it the opening scene, the Joker heist?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
how the movie's. Well,
It starts.
that's how the movie starts, and then it cuts to it's now nighttime, and the guys aren't willing to do the drug deal because they
Yes.
see the bat signal,
Correct.
and then that parlays into the Scarecrow
What does
chase.
Scarecrow say? What's his sassy line?
Not my diagnosis.
If he left you anybody to buy from.
Oh, right. I didn't say the trips would be good, something like that. They're pleasant. Yeah.
That's peak cinema.
We have covered the two topics so thoroughly that we start talking about Rugrats.
Let's start the
and the Nolanverse.
Let's start the Nolan experience and the Rugrats experience.
Well, this episode 1 is right here.
What is one niche cartoon from your childhood that was not crazy popular that you would recommend for people to watch, and then we'll sign off? Is it Bud Ugly Martians?
No.
Have you ever seen that? Do you know what I'm talking about at all?
I feel like there's some dead synapse in my head that's calcified that remembers.
It was like an early CG.
I know what that is, but I did
with
not.
Like,
that was
like
not
early
in
Jimmy
syndication.
Neutron type stuff, yeah.
Yes.
The Bud Ugly Martians.
I would recommend Robot Boy. I like that
Boy.
show. That was on Cartoon Network, and it was the like. In my head as a kid, I was like,
Chalk
I
Zone
want to
vibes.
see. Chalk Zone was fire.
Mm-hmm.
But Robot Boy versus XJ9 from My Life as a Teenage Robot. Those were two.
That was like the original power scaling. You should make that video.
I could, maybe it'll get some. Maybe it'll be like that one guy started making Ben 10 videos.
My Life as a Teenage Robot theme song?
My Life as a Teenage Robot, and then that's where it ends. I think it ends with you is the final.
It's just like going something down by the mall. And then the city, something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Something like that.
Something
I know
like
what
that.
you mean.
There's that one guy that
there.
was super simping for her in that show. The original.
I remember the
original
episode.
Gooner.
Yeah, the original Sex Box by 2020 prediction.
Yeah.
I remember the episode of that where there was like some robot or some sentient rag doll girl who was like flesh, and then her plan was to like take over the robot.
No.
Girl.
That Jenny wanted to be a human, so she wore like human flesh, like in one episode or so. I don't think she wore human
it
flesh.
became
But she had,
sentient.
like, a suit. Yeah.
It became sentient, and the suit zipped up, and she had like a nightmare or something where it zipped up over, and she lost her autonomy.
Yeah. For me, I'd highly recommend. I go Nickelodeon here. I go Cartoon Network here. I'm gonna go Nickelodeon. I think Nickelodeon was on top for sure. Like when I was a kid. As I started growing up, it flipped to Cartoon Network. But Nickelodeon, when I was a little kid, was number one. I have a distinct memory, a core memory of me maybe being 5 or 6, and Rugrats was my favorite cartoon.
Yeah.
And they switched the time. And the time Rugrats was going to come on in the evening was like my dinner time, so I couldn't watch it. And I cried in the car when I found out the news. It was pretty bad for me.
It's terrible, dude.
Yeah, I also have a core memory seeing the first commercial of SpongeBob that I saw on the TV. I saw the commercial, me and my little brothers, in 1999. And we ran into my parents' room, and we were like, you have to record SpongeBob SquarePants for us so we don't miss episode 1. And my parents were like, what the fuck are you talking about? SpongeBob what? That's like a core memory.
And now even your mom could name 10 characters.
My mom could name every character in SpongeBob. She's a SpongeBob head. But a
square head.
A square head, a sponge head.
Sponge square.
All right, I'm going to go... I recommend everybody go out there and watch Kablam. Classic Nickelodeon television show where it was based on comic books, and there was like a superhero team in the show. I forget what they were called, what the superhero team was, but they were like action figures. Action League Now, that's what they were called. Yeah,
Okay.
recommend that. Go watch Kablam. Or
I would also
yeah.
posit Camp Lazlo. That was on Cartoon Network.
Camp
I love
Lazlo
that
is
show
super
as a kid.
underrated. I like that.
Yeah, I
Better
like
than
that
my
show a
gym
lot.
partner is a monkey. Monkey,
That
monkey,
show is
monkey.
disgusting and disturbed.
Really?
sure.
I mean, I like that
Oh, yeah.
show, but Camp Lazlo is
just-
better. If you're going
just-
monkey for monkey, I'm gonna take Lazlo.
Camp Lazlo.
Yeah, the like camp council, like the lead camp guy from that show,
The Moose.
he was actually voiced by Tom Kenny, who did SpongeBob. Fun fact.
Yeah.
Fun
That
fact.
showed a good cast.
Fun fact for all you kids out there. But yeah, all right. This is no longer DC related. We are gonna get the heck out of here before we lose our minds. Thank you everybody for showing up. Thank you everybody for commenting and sticking it out through the Nickelodeon experience. We really do appreciate it. I will be back next week, no matter what. Will Crisis be here? Who knows? Will True be here? Who knows? Will Nick be here? Who knows? I'll be here. I'll tell you that much. Hopefully they'll be here with me, and we'll get the whole crew back together. But we will see you next week in the DCU Experience, no matter what. Even if there's no news, we can always talk about Nickelodeon. For Crisis, True, and Nick, my name is Garrick. Thank you for stopping by, and we'll see you next time. Peace.